Buddha was the first one who created a sand mandala. The Buddhist monks continue with the tradition. What they do is they get together by the water, by the river, lake, the sea, and they build this incredibly beautiful circle made out of sand. They spend a lot of time. They go out of their way to find the right, exactly, the perfect color. They spend weeks by the mandala, building it. The mandala comes from this little design they created before they started. And when they feel, okay, this is the best thing we can possibly create, this is all we can give, this is the perfect piece of art we want to give the world, they sweep it into the water. They destroy it. And in Buddhism, there are many layers of meanings. And in this case, what I love is that they love the process. They love working together, spending all those weeks, all those days together, gathering the colors, putting it on the ground, and coming up with the most beautiful thing possible. And then they get rid of it. We should think that if we are going to create a product, we should love the process. We should love the process of creating it, the process that takes us to the product. Some mandala starts with a little piece of paper. I love paper. When it turns to creativity, when the time comes and I'm about to create, I love paper. It's my favorite thing. I'm low tech. Don't get me wrong, I love technology. But paper, you can't really replace it. It has so many advantages. You can't get email in the background. So it's never going to be distracting you. This piece of paper here was given to me by a 7-year-old boy, Dylan, this morning, and he called himself a creator. That's our next generation, the creators. But I'm telling you, that I love paper. And every time I look at the piece of paper, every time in the morning when I'm about to start creating, and I do it every morning religiously, I take 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. But every time I look at it, I get a stomachache. I get so anxious. It's really impossible. And Danny, Dr. Friedman, was talking about that particular moment when that happens, the anxiety moment when it's being photographed too. So when that happens, what do I do? Just a piece of paper. What's important is inside us, not the surface where we are going to work on. Just a piece of, would you like to try it? You have a pad. What about taking a piece of paper? Let's see what happens. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Please. Hey, thank you. Great, very good shot. Right. Thank you. You've been waiting for this moment, I can see it. Thank you so much. Now it looks like we've been working like crazy for so long. But we know now what to do when we face a piece of paper. But how do we tap into our creativity? How do we get those ideas? Carl Jung, a philosopher, psychologist, came up with a theory of the collective unconscious. He was saying that our unconscious was part of a really large one. All our unconsciouses taking over the universe like a puzzle. So we are all connected. All our unconsciouses forming part of that puzzle connect us. So if that's true, there is a direct link between us, between all those images floating around, ideas are passing by, and it's up to you, up to us to catch them. How do we catch them? One of the things we do is we give people license to steal. We want you to steal. We want you to take ideas. But here's the thing. We don't want plagiarism. We don't want people just to copy an idea. We want transformation. And that is one of the keys of creativity. Transformation. Transforming. Creativity, transformation. Leonardo da Vinci used to look at the wall of his studio and come up with all his ideas for paintings, drawings, inventions. There were humidity stains. They were changing with the seasons. And in his notebooks, he says, the only thing I have to do, I have to copy those stains on the window. A little bit when we were little, we were looking at the clouds, and you would say, oh, that's a house. And your friend would say, no, that's a cow. That kind of thing. We are such complex individuals. We see so differently. And we have the capacity to transform. And it comes so naturally. I love Moby Dick. It's my favorite book. And I love also to go to the houses, places where people I admire lived or spent time at. And we were teaching in Massachusetts at the Berkshires, and I heard that Melville's house was there, one of Melville's houses. So I ran to Melville's house. I wanted to see it. And it's now a museum. The ground floor is just a normal museum. And the incredible thing is the second floor. They left it just as Melville left it when he moved to his next house. And what they did is they left that exactly the furniture in the same position. There was this little table, his chair. He was looking always through the window, and through the window, this little window, you could see Greylock, one of the largest mountain in the Berkshires. One morning, he did what he did every day, sit down, look through the window, and instead of seeing Greylock, the mountain, he saw the whale. It was a lightning bolt. In the moment, Moby Dick was created. He saw Moby Dick. Joan Miró, a wonderful artist, one of the geniuses of the 20th century. Every time he was about to create, he had the equivalent of a panic attack. One morning, he was painting, the canvas was behind him because he couldn't even look at it. And suddenly he turned and he saw a star. That's what he drew. And he realized that the canvas wasn't empty anymore. There was something there. And that, just that little thing, allowed him to start painting and never stop. He died when he was 92, and really happy. But what I want to make sure is that you understand is that all these creators I just mentioned, they failed. They failed. They failed so many times. And Shelley is going to tell us about it.
I'm not going to talk a lot because when Susie and Sally and I were talking about what we would do here that would be a little different, we're going to have some of you, all of you, exploring a little bit of your own imagination and your own creativity. But I do want to say a few words to make that a little easier and in some cases just a little calmer. You know, what Alejandro was saying about failing is so, so important. One of our favorite quotes in the world is fail, fail again, fail better. And those are the words of Samuel Beckett upon receiving the Nobel Prize for Literature, the secret to his great work. It's a very simple but complex statement. One of the beauties of the statement actually is the rhythm of it. And one of the things that we find out when we start to create is there's, as you've been hearing from our scientific colleagues, time when things need to go really slow and you need to be really sheltered, and other times when you have to be very rigid and very sharp and very focused in a more analytical way. Now, the composer John Cage said that creativity and analysis should never be done at the same time. They need their own space. Many creative people disagree with that. I happen to live by it. But you know, one thing about creativity and why you're hearing so many divergent opinions is that we have different personalities, and how we access our creativity, we have to understand a little bit of what kind of person we are and what brings out the deepest part of ourselves. What Beckett was saying, going back to fail, fail again, fail better, he's saying, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make huge mistakes. But if you say, bad, no, forget it, I'll never be anybody, leave it for somebody else to do, you're never going to find out what your potential is. And worse than not finding out about what your potential is, you're not going to serve the yearnings of, in the heart, that most people have to have creative outlet. Fail, fail again, fail better. Now, the other thing about failure is failure builds strength of ego, right? Some of the dumbest ideas, if you look at, you know, the beginning of certain inventions, you go, impossible, this is ridiculous. I'll give you an example. Steve Jobs, he said that his design inspiration for computer was a Cuisinart. I mean, you imagine if you went to Macy's and you're looking and you go to the housewares and you see a Cuisinart and go, that's it. That's going to transform communication and learning. It's impossible. But he had a very, very strong ego. And in the Isaacson book, you almost want to strangle him for that ego. You need it. You need to develop, with all the sensitivity that creativity takes, you need to develop the skin of a lizard. Now, And that's what Beckett was really saying about fail, fail again, and then fail better. That last statement is totally optimistic. It's totally inspirational. And it means you keep getting up. You know, like John Keogh said with that little clip on, was it Magic Johnson? How many times he failed? We also have to know that sometimes when other people think that we're failing, we're developing something new that they don't understand. And that unfortunately, sometimes for a long period of time, we don't understand. We just know it. It sticks with us. You know, you have something that you say, oh yeah, I know it doesn't work, let's get rid of it. It keeps coming back. Keeps coming back to you. That means you need to hold on to it, and you have to say, okay, I'm going to watch it grow. It may not take all my focus, but there's something valuable there that is really nascent, it's new, but it needs my nurture, it needs my attention. It's like the ugly child that only a mother could love. And those are the ones that often become the masterpieces. This is our first time with all of you, and it's been fascinating to get to see what this industry, what this profession really, I don't like the word industry, profession can give to people. When it comes to the imagination and the jump starting of creativity, you absolutely need all of the qualities that spa and wellness creates. You need relaxation. You need somewhere where you think you're not among the enemies of your life, meaning stress. You're among friends, people that really think it's okay for you not to be in the middle of stress all the time. That it's really actually kind of great that you don't like stress, that you don't want to feel it 24/7. In a way, it's a place to escape. And unlike many people, I'm all for escape. I think escape is where we get our great ideas. If you think about children, children are very, very creative. There's no doubt about it. And they escape a lot. As a matter of fact, their escape is far more important than the things that we think are important, like going to school. No, they'll get through school stuff so they can go and create and make worlds and put the world together in ways that we've never thought of because we're so busy doing what we're supposed to do. To be creative, you have to be a little bit naughty. You have to be a little bit, sorry, Dan, this is going to be bad for your, for bringing up your son, but you got to be a little rebellious. Actually, you have to be a lot rebellious. And that's one of the things that keeps you going. It's also very helpful to have a band of rebellious people around you. Now, I'm not trying to say that you don't need analytical chops to do your work as a creative person. You do. But they come in my opinion, in a much later stage. You've got to get the ideas flowing. And as a matter of fact, the interesting thing about analysis sometimes is the rebellion against it. Sometimes the time that the heroes of creativity have left the world, they've left their companions in creativity and gone off on their own, hasn't necessarily mean that they weren't good at what they were doing. It doesn't even necessarily mean they thought they weren't good at what they were doing. They needed to go and really develop their own aesthetic. And that's why they did it. They really didn't believe that what was going on was so great. To be creative, you got to get a little bit angry. You get angry. You say, that's nonsense. Yeah, I don't have my ideas straight, but I still think that's not the way, so I'm going to find another. And that's where you have to get really strong, because people are going to say, no, that won't work. How many times a day do we hear, especially from ourselves, it won't work? Like 24/7. That's not a good way to go about getting your imagination to work for you. I like to sometimes think about imagination as a separate entity, this person that gets to live with me or I get to live with. And that person doesn't like to be told no all the time because the analytics of an idea take a while to work out. Sometimes creativity comes like this. You have an idea. Now that idea has probably been working over your lifetime of associations. You can't shut these things down too soon. And in the big problem for a lot of companies is we don't have the equivalent of an experimental lab. We don't have Bell Labs. And most great ideas come from having the time and space to think, to make mistakes, to yell back and forth with your colleagues. There's a wonderful book out, by the way, on Bell Labs and what that brought to the table of science and many of the things we take for granted today. We did a panel yesterday, and it was very interesting, the questions that were asked. They were really wondrous, intelligent questions. And one of the main concerns is, can we learn to be creative? And there were many answers to this. Yes, no, create environment, create prompts and stimulus. And the one thing that I was thinking about after this discussion, because I know, as all of you, there's been so much to put together. There's been so many amazing ideas. And what I was thinking about was, well, one of the best places to learn about your creativity is to remember it. As children, we take our imagination for granted. We all have it. Do you know one child that doesn't have an imaginative spirit? That doesn't say, the most extraordinary things that first you go, oh, yeah, right. And then you go, wow, that certainly is a different way of intuiting the world. If we can remember how we were imaginative as children, we can recapture it as an adult and use it in the way and ask the questions an adult must ask of that imagination creativity. It's always seemed a terrible waste to me that something that we come into life with, imagination and creativity, it's probably a survival mechanism, because the more creative, the more flexible to change you are, the better your chances of survival when a saber-tooth comes and wants to eat you. So if we're born with something, and then in the first 5 to 6 years, we craft it. You look at a 2-year-old and they're sticking everything in their mouth, and they're also taking it apart. They're really trying to figure out how all their senses interact with this thing, and also how it works. Especially boys, they want to take everything apart, and then they think they can put it together. And we've seen the results of that. So why, the question I ask all of us, and including me, why does culture ask that as we become more specialized, we give our imagination up? Not only do we give it up, but we make fun of people who use it. I think by the time you're 10, somebody says something that isn't the right answer, everybody laughs at that person. And that person needs to have a very good, strong ego, or very wise teachers, to maybe take a kernel of the truth out of that dumb idea. The simplest ideas are often where our genius lies. And the other thing that I would hope that in this era of associative thinking, one of the great boons of the technology and what it allows us to do is it allows us to very quickly put together disparate ideas. I would hope that it would encourage us all to be creators rather than consumers. We live in a world that is really economically fueled by consumerism. And someday I hope that the people fueling the consumerism will not want us to be such passive consumers of it. we have the ability to do a lot of the creating that we buy. But there are not many people out there encouraging you to stay home and create your new business plan and your new possibility of just forging out on your own, or to write the memoir that you've been dying to write, or to learn to play piano when you're 75. That's considered frivolous. But it's not considered frivolous to go out and go shopping at the mall. As a matter of fact, some presidents have told us it's our American duty. I think the spa industry creates an environment, and it is a consumer environment where we are encouraged, and can be even more encouraged, to take steps out into our imagination, to becoming the people that we really are inside. Picasso once said, well, you can leave off creating to another day, but that only should be the truth if you're willing to die before doing what you plan to do. That's a pretty heavy statement, but it's true. It's true. And what I'd like to do with you all now is do a guided visualization. It's just a fragment of how we enter into our creativity. But it's a fragment that we can all do together, and we can do it relatively quickly. There's a few ground rules, and I'll let you know what they are. First, don't worry if you don't follow the directions. Some of the best creative work I've ever done is when I didn't understand the directions. But I didn't sit there going, oh my God, I don't understand the directions, and then I'm lost, because then I'm completely in the part of my brain that wants to do everything right, is incredibly analytical and rigid, and can't think, can't dream. So what I'm going to be asking you to do, and it's a little impossible, so it's just an image I want you to put in your minds. I want you, as we write and draw, to let your hand move faster than your brain. It doesn't matter if what comes out has meaning or chaos. Because believe me, eventually everybody can make meaning. But to get all the images and ideas out, that's outrunning linear thinking. Linear thinking makes it very hard to do associative thinking and dreaming. So that's what we're going to be doing. And I want you to think about this chain reaction: innovation, creativity, imagination, images. You can't have innovation without creativity. You can't have creativity without imagination. You can't have imagination without images. We are imaging beings. We are the only creatures, so far that we know, that create visuals in our head without needing to see the real thing. The more that you can create a visual reality as much as a thinking reality, the more inspired you become. And it isn't just your mind, it's your body. You know, I'm sure as time goes on, we're going to find that the brain is a meeting place of a lot of intelligence, but there's a lot of theories. It's a lot of other kinds of intelligence going on in the rest of our body. When we create, we use our bodies as well as our minds. We use our hearts, and we use our souls. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and just take a moment to relax. Get out the kinks. Let all the thoughts and all the things that you're thinking about doing just disappear. Send them flying out of the room. And just breathe. And I think you all know how to breathe from your belly, slow, deep. Make sure you really exhale. You want to exhale more than you breathe in. and keeping your eyes closed, we're going to go on a visual journey. I want you to imagine that you can walk inside your chest. Your whole body can just go walking inside your chest. And it's floating over your heart. Imagine that you're just floating over your heart, looking down on it. And I want you to imagine that you're a cartographer. You're a maker of maps. And this heart that you see below you is an unknown continent. I want you to step down on that continent of your heart and have a walk around. Walk up the hills and down the valleys, the rivers, the oceans. And start to explore this unknown continent of your heart. Feel the ground beneath it, beneath you, and the air. And as you're walking, a paper airplane falls by your foot. Paper airplane, from out of nowhere. So you pick it up, you open it up, and it's an email from National Geographic magazine. And the email says, "We have heard that you are exploring the unknown continent of your heart. And we want you to do a feature spread for our magazine so that others who come after you can also travel the continent of your heart." And you accept the assignment. Being a cartographer, you think the best thing to do, number one, would be to make a map of the unknown continent. So I'd like you to open your eyes and take out your pads and make a topographical map of the continent of your heart. And take these directions any way you intuit them. It doesn't matter what it turns out to be. You can throw it away, make another one. And let your hand go faster than your brain. Just see what that feels like. No matter what, don't stop, even if you make lines you don't like, colors you hate. And don't forget to name some of the tourist attractions on your heart. It can be your literal heart, it can be a metaphorical heart. And anytime you get lost, just close your eyes and imagine that image of yourself walking the terrain of your heart. And feel how good it is to have a color being made by your hand on paper. The feeling of the flow that comes from the pencil on the paper. You can imagine your hand is like a dancer. And take a few minutes to make sure you name some of the places on your heart. And I'm going to stop you. You can go back to this again later. We're just creating the beginnings of seeds here. I want you to take a separate piece of paper. And I want you to write down 2 questions. Question number 1. How do I get from my heart to my brain? How do I get from my heart to my brain? That's question number 1. Question number 2. Everybody ready for question number 2? How do I get from my brain to my heart? How do I get from my brain to my heart? I want you to choose one of those questions and write about it. And when I mean write about it, I want you to write so fast that you can't think. Everything that just comes out, very fast. You just need to answer one of those 2 questions. And as you're answering it, there are many ways you can answer it. You can answer it as if you are a cartographer. How are you going to get there? Literally, physically. You can answer it as a fairy tale. Once upon a time, I took a trip. You can answer it psychologically. You can answer it as if it's a scientific hypothesis. Just see which way works for you. And it doesn't matter if it makes sense, by the way. And I'm going to stop you again. You can go back and finish this later. But you've got some fragments. And sometimes fragments are far more useful to share than the finished goods. You know, when we finish something, it's like, here it is. When we share fragments, the community is actually helping us shape our work. And because creativity is always part of being a community, it's as much the inside expression as the outside sharing. it's a very nice idea to just share fragments. So I'm going to ask you to turn to the person next to you or find somebody and share what you've done. Believe me, these are all going to be very rudimentary. Shh! Wait. Before you share, there's one little direction. You hear how softly I'm speaking. You're going to whisper. You cannot share this work above a whisper. I'll tell you why afterwards. Okay? You're going to whisper to each other what you've done. How long should I let this go on? Is anybody doing it? Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you one more time. If we had more time, there are several other parts to this exercise, but I just wanted you to get a taste of it. This is called guided visualization. There are many different kinds. They've been using it in wellness for very different reasons, but in some ways they're quite the same. The guided visualization, guided imagery, people use it before operations and they see that their blood pressure goes down, they're in better shape for the surgery. It's not a joke. It's very powerful when we envision, right? Envision. It helps us adapt in the world and also transform the world. You can create your own visualizations. This particular one, we thought we would do the heart because we've been thinking so much in so many wonderful ideas that sometimes my head aches. I'm like, oh my God, but this, and I need some time to process. So we really wanted to give you, in a way, some downtime and some time to just feel the pleasure of a pencil and color. And we didn't have enough crayons, I'm sorry. And then there is an analytical part to this exercise. How do I negotiate between what these two symbolize? Not necessarily what they are physically, but what they symbolize, the soul and the heart and the intellect, which is all of us as adults. We have to negotiate. As adults, our most creative act is surviving and making a living and having fulfilling, exciting, inspirational lives. That's our creative feat. And the ability to be able to go inside and also create your own visualizations. You can start to visualize something that you're wanting to do that everything is against you doing. And you'll do it. I don't think there's one person that's spoken, because I know the stories of many of the people here, that hasn't had to come against incredible odds. And one of the ways children learn to beat their odds is they imagine. There's something good about being able, when you can't escape a situation, to live in one's imagination. And I recommend it to adults when we reach walls that we can't go over, because we have long, wonderful lives ahead of us. And to use our gifts, our inspiration, our imagination, our creativity, our ability to love and communicate, what more could we ask for? I want to close on something that is very, very apropos to this conversation. And I lost it. Where did it go? Let's see. Here we go. Okay. This is a quote by a choreographer that many of you may know, Martha Graham. And she's really the mother of modern dance. And when she was interviewed, at one point, she was very, very late in her life, and she wanted to impress upon her audience how important it was not just to go watch her company dance, but to involve creativity, the action of creativity, whatever it meant, from making a quilt to a garden to finding a new way to live your life, that it was absolutely vital for human civilization to go forward. And this is what she said: "There is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time," I'm going to repeat it, there is only one of you in all time, "this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost." And I'm going to repeat that again. If you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, how valuable, or how it compares with other expression. It is your business to keep the channel open. Thank you.
Thank you.